So this is a look at a workflow execution. Excuse me. I've been running my favorite prompt, which is to compare the go-to-market strategies of MongoDB and Couchbase to help me understand why one is more successful than the other. Excuse me. And it's exciting because I have no idea what it's going to do every single time we run it. There are a couple steps that I can predict, though. I know we're going to begin a turn. I'll bump this up here so it's a little more visible. I know we're going to begin a turn, and if everything's successful, we're going to end a turn. But pretty much everything in between, I do not know. And to demonstrate that, I'm going to go to another workflow execution here, which is very similar. And here we can see that this pattern looks a little bit different. I'll just jump back and forth so you can see the difference. Now I'm going to go to a third one here, and another prompt that I ran, and how these all look very different. So I think what's changed since the last time that I shared this is I don't think the last time I put this in front of everybody, we had these tool calls here. And the tool calls can be any number of tools. Right now, we have two tools that are able to fire. One is a web search tool, and I'll show that in a moment. And the other one that I can't demo yet, but that I'm working on is the artifact generation tool, which for a complex answer such as comparing go-to-market strategies would result in a panel flying out with an editable document that somebody may publish or revise or work with, similar to the code in your cursor experience. Now I'm going to show one more workflow here, and this was not an intentional failure. Unfortunately, this was a real failure. And the real failure here was that Anthropic decided to not like me for a little while, and I was getting 502 bad gateway errors from Anthropic. And what's cool is that everybody who's in the operational side of things here will have access to this tool. And so when a customer does have a bad issue, we'll be able to see, why did we fail, which gets us back to that whole touch point conversation that we were on. Or maybe it didn't fail. Maybe it was a silent failure, as Shelby likes to describe, where the whole system worked, but maybe the quality of the answer wasn't great. We'll be able to dig into every single step and see, what was the input that we got, what was the output we got, to better understand the mechanics of how we ended up with the final result that we got. But this is a demo. It's not just a look at workflows. And so let's go ahead and run one. I've not run this prompt yet. It's exciting because I have no idea what's going to happen. So I'm going to go ahead and hit submit. And as we do this, we're going to see we're understanding, doing an initial review, which I call triage. We're classifying the prompt that was provided. We're coming up with a confidence score on how we understand that. We're producing our system instructions. We may stop here. If I submit a prompt that's just like hello, we would stop right here. The request, the answer would be provided here, and we would just print that. But this is more sophisticated. So again, we proceed to the next step, which is intent intent analysis. Now, getting back to the workflow, and we'll go ahead and watch this workflow and see what's going on here. As we continue to generate, we can see these little lines in this chart, which means that we're sending heartbeats, which means that it's alive and well, even though the task is not done. So you can see these ones here. We haven't sent any heartbeats yet, which we send roughly every 10 seconds. And now we can see this particular workflow is done. I'm going to go back to the demo here. And it's starting to become prettier. It won't look like this soon, probably by the end of the day. But what's really important to highlight here is that we've developed this execution plan. And the execution plan is aware of what tools we can call, whether those are tools to search our own knowledge base, produce an artifact, do a web search, etc. And the model is able to build a strategy that works well for our system. And in the way that it's designed, I think Burge, I was pretty excited by what Burge said yesterday in our user demo, in that he was under the impression that agents were all very specialized. And he pointed out that one of the things that I think we need to do here is bring attention to the dynamic nature of this. And maybe we'll have some text up here at the bottom soon that says, building your marketing agent, or working for financial analysis, or something like that, to just really highlight the fact that we're not pinned to one domain. And so I'm going to take a moment to just scroll down so you can see. Maybe I can click this collapse step. Yeah, that's working. So here we did a web search, because as a reminder, my prompt was to understand Netflix and Disney Plus and Paramount, so I could figure out which one's growing for an investment. And so our strategy came up with a search criteria to go out on the web and find a bunch of Netflix data. It also went out and found a bunch of Disney Plus data and some Paramount data. And we didn't wait for each one of these searches to complete. As we go back here, in the way that the tool is designed and the schema is designed, we were able to perform all of these searches at once. Right now I have this clamped to no more than 10 concurrent actions will work at once. But it's possible that in order to execute the strategy, we need to perform 20 or 30 web searches. There are going to be various limitations, or I like to use the word governors, to constrain the depth of how many steps a workflow can take, or what tools are available. So for example, a free user will not have the same capabilities as a paid user, and a paid user may not have the same capabilities as an enterprise paid user. And I just want to extend some gratitude to Stephen and Shelby and Drodio and everybody else who's working on our pricing plan structure. But there's a hard-coded limit that no more than 10 will run at once right now. But the complexity of these plans can change as we figure out what capabilities we award to free users versus registered users versus paid users, et cetera. So now I'm going to just finish with going all the way to the bottom here, and you can see the tool I'm working on right now, which is to actually render this answer in that editable artifact. And so our strategy chose to do this. Again, if it was something like hello, we wouldn't generate an artifact, we wouldn't do web searches, we would have stopped much earlier. I'm also going to do one more thing here and show something that has made development much easier. And I'm excited to demonstrate the capabilities of Storytell from, say, our homepage. I'm going to run this, and now I'm going to refresh. And now no matter what I type, it doesn't matter, because what I chose to do, I just don't have a nice button to do this right now, is to play back a session. And so here we can see we have tokens that are accumulating, we have bytes that are accumulating as these stream in. And no matter how many times I run this, I'm going to refresh and just kick off my playback. We are repeating that same experience that a customer had. And so we don't like to go slow around here, we like to go fast. So I'm going to say this at 5 times playback speed and run it again. And now you can see it's running much faster. And so this is a feature that I could imagine us having on our homepage, where we are advertising different use cases, and we allow a customer or a user to click a button and actually see the playback of some use case, like analyzing Netflix and Disney Plus data, maybe well before they've ever logged in. Now, going under the hood a little bit, just to show how this stuff works. I've lost my strategy. This is a look at this. This is the session that I just played back. And so I've skipped down several steps just to take a look at the strategy itself. And so we've triaged the request. We knew it was something complex. We then worked to understand the intent of the user. And that means that we know kind of what domain they're working in, it's marketing or financial analysis, et cetera. And we figured out things like what kind of tone we should use to produce the artifact. And so here we can see that we have a description of the strategy. We have success criteria that's been identified. And this will be important because we may not be able to develop the entire strategy in the first shot. The more we learn about the data that we've collected after doing web searches, we may discover that there are additional steps that we need to do to really answer the question of comparing Disney Plus and Netflix's growth. And so steps like a checkpoint step come into play, where after performing a few web searches and some knowledge-based searches and doing a synthesis, we can then ask, how does that synthesis deliver? What's the quality of that synthesis against the success criteria that we outlined as we developed the strategy? And then based on that checkpoint, we may declare that we're done and ask the user for feedback, or we may then re-strategize additional steps that we need to accomplish to go satisfy that goal. And so here's an example of the first step that was planned for the strategy. It has a unique name, a description of what the step is and why we need to do it. The tool that we're going to call the prompt that's going to help the tool figure out its parameters, what the expected outcome is, whether it's critical to the workflow or not. It may depend on some other previous tool getting executed, kind of how we're going to organize context, and whether it's a retriable step or something like that. As we go back to here, you can see there's a tool call here that depended on these, tool call here that depended on those, and I'm just going to go randomly pick one. And here we can see that we have these tool calls, and this one depended on the inputs from that, and this one depended on the inputs from that, etc. Now, I'll just take a quick moment to show what tools themselves look like. And
Aaron, we got about a minute left of the meeting.
Excellent.
I don't know if anyone wants to stay over time.
Well, this is just a quick look at what tools themselves look like.
Yeah, let's keep going. This is awesome. How about 5 minutes over, and then we'll reassess.
Yeah, Aaron, this is the most engaged I've ever been in one of your demos. So.
I look for a 6-star review from you then. Thank you. So this is what a tool schema looks like. This is what allows the model to figure out which tools it should use. And there are kind of two versions of it. There's a short schema, which is provided to strategy, and then there's a long schema, which has all of the data. Some improvements I've made since the last time I shared this with any other engineers is I used to have hard-coded JSON in here. Now it's all type safe. So if we change these contracts, we won't break the system. Tools have the ability to have health checks. I have not implemented a health check for this particular tool yet, but the system is designed so that if a tool is failing, maybe one of our vendors is down or we're having some other issues, that tool can be taken out of rotation. Here is another tool. So this was the web search tool, and this is the artifact generator tool, which again helps the model understand why it would be used, what are the appropriate contexts, and how to structure arguments in order to use this tool. So we can pop into the new schema builder here, which makes it really easy because it goes out and finds the appropriate proto schema for that tool. So here we only have to look at kind of the human curated stuff. All of the actual machine stuff for what parameters to provide is automatically generated. And I'll just pop over to one more tool, which is the revise tool, which I'm working on. And so why this matters is that the strategy can choose a tool like web search or knowledge-based search. It can sequence that in the appropriate order. It can say that artifact generation depends on web search. And it can choose the right tool depending on if we are, excuse me, if we are starting a new conversation or if we are continuing a conversation. For example, if we were continuing, we might want to use the revise tool to revise an artifact instead of a generator tool.
Aaron,
I think I'll stop there.
Okay, let's take a minute to just zoom out. Who can describe in a sentence or two what we just saw? How would you describe this new version of Storytell?
Sentence cricket, so I'll answer. I was hoping somebody else would, but I think there's just a shift here from what we do today, which is one thing, basically, when somebody clicks submit, to now building the infrastructure to allow the LLM to drive. I think that's really the difference, which is going to have a much better outcome because it's going to feel much more natural.
Yeah, who has something to add to that? Or does anybody have anything to add to that?
It feels like taking the predictions and the paper situational awareness that came out a year ago almost exactly, and like, not any of the nefarious things, but it's like AI that's checking itself, AI that's going to help AI do its job, have these dependencies. So that feels really exciting. And also, because of the calls with Barge, I've missed a few of the Eng demos. And so it's great to see that what he's hoping for is exactly what we're building.
Yeah. Plus 1,000 to all of that. Andy, it looks like you might have something you're about to say. I can't quite tell.
Just saying that we saw something amazing.
Did see. So first of all, some gratitude to all of us for what is on the screen right now. I know that Aaron, you're the one demoing this, but it has been a real just effort from everybody to get us to this point. This just feels like a very significant and magical moment to be sharing with all of you. There's a couple things that I just want to make sure that we all understand clearly. Let's go back to what Shelby said. So we are moving from basically ask a question and get a response. Instead, it is, we are like, what separates humans from, most animals is the ability to create and use tools. And what we are building into this system is a system that can triage, understand, analyze, plan a strategy, call a set of tools, check to see how that output look, call more tools if necessary, and then be able to create output of various types based on that. And Aaron, you described a couple tools like web search or artifact generator. I mean, let's just brainstorm for a minute, because we can make any tools, right? What are some kinds of tools that could be created? I'll just kick it off. I want to create image results. I want to create a tool that creates results in images or in videos or as audio, right? That could be a tool. What are some other tools that we could create, or maybe others create in a marketplace? Who's got ideas? I'll give
Basically, any MCP server that is made available could become a tool, essentially.
That's a great point, right? So we could have an MCP client that's connecting to an MCP server from GitHub. What about social listening? Barish has said that he wants to be able to go out and check social listening. Now that's just a tool that we go work with a social listening company to create and drop in. Right? So it's a very, I mean, we're building an agentic system here. A generally, like Aaron's saying, it's not limited to one domain. It's a generally useful agentic system. This is why we say like Storytell's like Cursor for unstructured data. This is really cool. Who else has other thoughts, questions, feedback, comment, or Aaron, is there anything else you want to mention?
I mean, I guess something that I'm excited to use this. Also, just I've been telling people that, you know, Storytell in its current state, it's almost like I make equations, like qualitative equations. Like take this collection plus this collection for the output and the voice of this collection, etc. And to do that with the external world, essentially, with the web searches and beyond, feels really powerful. And, you know, I use deep research on ChatGPT, but or I use their web search, but this combination of everything and then going into doing. And my only experience with agents so far is, you know, using the agentic version of like agent part of Cursor, and it feels totally magical for things to just be created.
Yep. In fact, Aaron, do you, and I know we're over time, so we'll finish soon, but Aaron, do you have, since this is a public video, a view in Cursor that you could just pop up so we can kind of like associate this to what Cursor does? I just want to show the like thought for 2 seconds piece and that sort of thing, and how some of the output. So right now what Aaron was showing on Storytell was a bunch of like JSON output in the Storytell response thread. But what that's actually going to look like is very much when you use Cursor, we can kind of see what happens here. So you can see how it's like doing things here. Maybe Aaron, you can associate a little bit of what we see here to the way that Storytell's output might look.
I think it will largely look very similar in that there are blocks that we can see here. There's a title, there's an icon. The content is formatted appropriately for each block. For example, here we can see kind of what I would interpret as a system instruction versus something that's user-facing. And you can also see the tool calls here. Some of these, maybe this is a better example of what would be like a system instruction. So where we show JSON, the user would see JSON while it's streaming in so that they have feedback, but then we would hide it because it's not really important to them, but we're just trying to show them how the watch works as an elevator in the lobby. And then for each block, there are actions that you can take, such as copying or sending or retrying, and blocks could be, in our world, things like charts and graphs. Something I'll take us under the hood a little bit to see is messages, proto. Again, I'll just highlight how important the proto files are for everybody to understand in every department. So let me zoom out here a little bit. And so there are different types of messages. So like when the system has taken an action, or when we've started a message block, when we're streaming in content to the message blocks, etc. But then an additional property of these messages, which the LLM will choose based on the context is kind of what's the kind of message. In that it can be an interstitial update, which is just providing updates as we call a tool or we think or something like that. There'll be different types of messages when scope of the conversation changes, when content is referenced, ready for a citation or has been cited, when the user has given us feedback and we process that feedback, when system status changes, when we've learned something about you and we've saved that memory. And then even just in the conversation, they're not all just answers. So what we just saw here was type content. But if, as I proceed in the conversation, maybe I say, why did you choose to do that? And then the model, I would assume, will choose the right type of, or the right kind of message to associate with its response. And these become prompt instructions for the model to choose. So that means that we can have different visual presentations and a deeper context of, is the model explaining why it did something? Is it explaining a citation? Did it summarize something? Is it disclaiming some limitation? Is it offering an alternative response? Is it elaborating? All these different types of steps. Did it make a mistake and is it correcting itself? And so as we take that back to Cursor, you can imagine these units might have different icons and different visual treatments based on the meaning of the message, not just the text that was printed. And so it'll give us a lot of flexibility, I think, to have a very rich UI.
Okay, I'm going to propose that we leave it at that. And I just want to mention, this is just a piece of everything, right? So there's the work that Shelby's doing so that we can consume and ingest basically limitless amounts of like unstructured CSV data and then be able to return that into this system for usage. There's the ability for us to be presenting things as artifacts that are editable by users so that we're printing out a response, but that response can be edited and shared. I mean, there's the whole concept graph and concept view and the ability to be able to mention concepts into this. So, it's like amazing to watch this start to come together. And I'm so thankful to all of you for getting us here. I can't wait to share this with people in our circle of trust to get their reaction. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. This is amazing.
And I'll just add one other thing. I've really been surprised is I have not had one tool call failure yet. Don't have a lot of tools, but I haven't had any bad instructions yet from the model. I've been using Claude 3.7 on it.
Right, and as the underlying LLMs get better and better and better, like this system just gets more and more and more powerful. So.
All right, thank you, everybody. 6 stars for me. Appreciate you.